that's a question I will add to the next list when we have our next feedback meeting.
Okay. You ready? Ready for
Okay.
Is there another?
5 voting.
No, you've got 6, you've got Fritz. 1, 2, 4 here. Fritz and
6.
Adam, so you're got for
Yeah, I
Right.
think it used to be 12, no, we lost 12. There was 10 potential members and 2 councillors.
We're not voting.
Okay, so just don't vote.
Yeah.
But they still.
Adam,
So we're good.
Alex was
Welcome.
not feeling well yesterday.
This is our July 29th official plan steering committee meeting. In that form, we're going to begin. I'm going to start with land acknowledgement. So before we begin, we acknowledge with gratitude that we are gathered today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. This land known as, I'm going to try this, Naflalaquam. Is that close? Okay, I'm going to try that. Also known as Bowen Island, has been cared for and stewarded by the Squamish people for countless generations. As we meet here in the summer season, when the land, sea, and forest are especially vibrant, we're reminded of the deep and ongoing relationship with the Squamish people in this place. Honoring their enduring presence and connection with this land and commit ourselves to learning from it with respect. So thank you. First up on the agenda, approval of the agenda. So this was from our, this is the approval of our agenda today for July 29th. I have it, sorry, what?
I don't have any late items.
Okay. Any late items? Okay, yeah.
That's do it.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
good practice.
Oh, it's good practice, okay. Can I have someone to, okay, so moved, seconded, all in favor? Okay, great. The agenda is approved. Adoption of our June 18th official community plan steering committee meeting. And it's hopefully everybody's had a chance to review that. Any questions or comments or anything? Okay, so can I have someone move the adoption of the minutes? Glenn, okay, seconded by Kelly. All in favor? Okay, very much. Okay, do we have any public comments?
Nothing
No.
on the Zoom, no, and buttons.
Okay, perfect. So we're moving on to number 4. So this is arising from the minutes, and so this is a project progress report by Daniel. Daniel, why don't I turn it over to you then?
I just have a quick update to go through where we are in terms of steps of the project. All right, so we're still currently in this phase 2, gather ideas, explore options. Still looking at phase 3, summer and winter 2025, summer, winter 2025, finalization winter, spring 2026. So the phase 1 tasks that were laid out have all been completed, and I may stop right now. I just go a little on. So phase 2 tasks we completed. So the big broad engagement was completed. The phase 2 engagement report is on the agenda today. It says complete. There's still some opportunity for feedback we'll get into, but in essence, the bulk of that work has been done. So the next 2 tasks in phase 2 is working draft and vision goals, emergency policy options, and then this formulate scenarios and options. And so that's what we have scheduled for our August meeting. That's what they had flagged as their meeting number 3. And so look to address both of those pieces. Yes.
So when you say formulate, are they going to talk about what they're going to formulate, or are they going to bring scenarios and options to the 19th meeting?
I think that had been their goal. I need to touch base exactly, yeah, how much they're able to bring to that August 19th meeting. Yeah. So it may be sort of discussion of scenarios. I don't know how full they form. So then phase 3 obviously goes into drafting an OCP outline and then drafting the OCP itself, and then next they need to produce a technical memo summarizing ability to service the draft OCP. And then we move into public engagement materials, public engagement itself, and then revisions to draft. So terms of just the count of the tasks, you can see, oh, we've completed more than half of them, but knowing that those ones coming up are, get counted as one thing, but are quite happy. Yeah, but that's overall sort of progress on where we are. I don't know if there's questions on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I was going to ask a question, but I think I can wait till 4.3. Okay, so we're going to move on to 4.2, which is the What We Heard report. You all know that we received a copy of the report a few weeks ago now, so hopefully everybody's had a chance to review it. And so we're going to do, just to give an overview on what we're going to do here for the next 15 minutes is Daniel's going to give us an overview on the document itself. And then once he's done that, we're going to do a bit of a round table. And I'm going to ask everyone to have a few minutes to give their impressions. So the idea here is not to do an individual deep dive on every response, but sort of more along the lines of reflections on the content itself, what stood out for you, if there was something that you wanted to do there. And then we're going to do another round where we're going to talk about what we kind of learned from the process and what we might want to do differently as we get into the next phases. So just to recap, we sort of will sort of start with just sort of your impressions of the report itself, what stood out for you. And then once we complete that, go through everybody. Obviously, we will have a chance if anybody has a question or a clarification from one of the committee members. But the idea here is not to do a deep dive on every response and et cetera. Otherwise, we'll be here until, I don't know, next Tuesday. And then again on the process. So any questions on how we're going to do that to start up? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Daniel to give a bit of an overview itself, set the stage for us in terms of our conversation.
Great, thanks for that. And I guess I'll say off the top, I've received, I think, an email from Adam as well with some comments. Shared it, but just kind of got some feedback. Great. So what we heard report is in the agenda. McElhaney summarizing that phase 1 of engagement. So this was sort of their summary of it. 674 surveys submitted, approximately 1,000 people engaged, 21 different participants. And I quite like highlighting to the 14 different steering committee members and staff participating in the post-event. Very small people participating. And then so going through the report itself, so one of the questions asked was choosing themes from the current OCP vision statement that represent development. And so this is the one where people can pick, I think, up to 3 of the vision statements. And so the clear sort of majority selected was that well-protected natural field green spaces, significantly higher than the others. And the second resonant theme was the population diverse styles. And then we asked people about current OCP goals that resonate. And again, the highest rated one was the one that was about preserve and protect unique amenities in the natural environment. The second one being about managing growth in a way that is conditioned by the natural environment. Third being about the importance of the green environment. I think my other reflection from this too, which I think came up when we were doing the survey as well, is just sort of we have many multi-barreled goals and visions. So it can almost be hard when asking people to rank. It's like, well, are they selecting it because, which part of it are people selecting? They're selecting the highest one, can make it hard to value from that point of view. Like the third one, are people selecting the importance of the marine environment, or are they about the marine-oriented community of the atmosphere? The report asks to choose the 3 most important development challenges. So we get servicing capacity, infrastructure, conditions, affordability. The 3 most important sustainability challenges: nature conservation, mobility, and social diversity. We asked a specific question about Do you support the idea of having policies that encourage nature-based infrastructure and green development, such as tree preservation, landscape requirements, and nature-based solutions for stormwater management? We have 78% of people supported that, at least in theory, which I found interesting because in my day-to-day in terms of explaining regulations to people, I have very different experience at times. And then I like this question. It was asking people what they value most. What should be preserved or enhanced as community grows? As we see the Bowen community and then green space as those top two buckets of responses. Ask people about housing needs and what purpose-built housing choices should be offered or expanded on Bowen. So he's hearing about purpose-built rental housing and independent seniors housing is the top two selected there. And then interesting when asking about the economy, what are the top three choices? And the top answer for that was housing. So I think that's speaking to probably businesses on Bowen still struggling to find staff or housing for staff. And the second one being infrastructure, and third being agriculture. And that was the end of what I did.
Okay. What I thought we'd do is maybe take a list of people who want to start, and we'll continue through the list. Raise your hand when you want to go next or whatever, and Steph will mark it down in case I miss it. But do we have someone who would like to volunteer or volunteer to start? Just to give their observations. We can go right around the room if that makes it easier as well. You okay with that, Glenn?
Yep.
Okay, we're doing that. Okay, so just I think they're up there, right? Yeah. So here's some clues or cues for you if you're looking at what you need to respond to. And just start with just sort of number one first. Then we're going to come back on, or sorry, number one and two. And then we're going to talk about the process separately in a second round. That's okay. Okay. Over.
I guess just a general question. I presume this report is going to be a public document.
It is.
Yeah.
It's on our page.
I think it's been a couple of weeks since I reviewed it, but I don't think I'm gonna comment on the results of the survey. I'm sure Matt Lahey's done a good job of formulating the statistics on the feedback. But in terms of the report, the only thing that really jumped out at me that I think should be adapted or changed in some way is that it made some next step statements. And one of them even went as far as I can't remember enforcing something rather than getting the context on it, permit areas or something like that. I think this document should not be making those kind of statements. Next steps and enforcement of something, making decisions is the part that we have to come.
Yeah.
So I think just maybe some editing on intent.
Yeah.
Is important. Otherwise, I think it's interestingly, certainly that. Just go back to one of your summary slides, I think, as you already indicated, Daniel, that some of the policy statements that you were asked for people to provide comment on were big enough that it's hard to dissect, what are the key aspects of these statements. But the one that I found interesting, and I still don't understand that and all that well, is the one about preserving community. It was right, that one. When I started this community growth response to community, do you have a sense of what it's the top score, but I'm not sure what is that. Like what is like that could be.
I think each respondent had their own.
Yeah.
Meaning differently to different people, but the overall sense I get from the survey today is that there is a strong sense of community. Everybody's gone out, but in modest numbers. I think that the preserving of the environment And the recognition of our limited capacity to serve, compromise our available resources really came strong. In the results, so I'm kind of interested to see where that goes in terms of defining community growth, but hey, that's my overall summary.
Thank you very much. David?
Excuse me, I'm much like Glenn. That one looked out at me too, and my concern is that it was so vague that it doesn't actually mean it. And so we had very clear feedback about the preserving nature and that sort of thing. In so many of our community meetings, like the Bible conversations sessions and that sort of thing, housing is something very, very important. And this time it doesn't, on the surface, doesn't appear to be as important. And my bias is I don't think that actually captures what people are thinking, but I don't know. Like Glenn, the methodology and everything in the report, I don't have an argument with. I don't see any glaring discrepancies or anything like that. Something that I think I should have paid more attention to is the interval between this report and then the draft. Whether we are going to, as a community or as a group, we are going to actually be able to inform much of the draft in response to this survey. I'd like to talk about that at some point. Because I think it would be quite easy for us and our community to be fairly fast. Here's the information that was gathered, here's what we should do. And I think that there is a role for the group of us to point out things that we think are very important and to have them be featured more prominently in the draft. That's where I'll stop.
Okay. Thank you.
I was actually fascinated by all the comments that accompanied this survey. Lots of commentary about what diversity means and lots of different opinions about what it means for Bowen. And under both housing and economics, again, not real clarity about what that means for Bowen. I really felt a need for experts there and an accumulation of all the data, whatever surveys and things the municipalities already done to give us a sense. With housing in particular, I'm not so convinced that you can separate Bowen from the rest of British Columbia or Canada and concerns about housing. And it strikes me, given our size and our capacity to do anything in that area, that real information about who we're trying to house, who we want to prioritize, and is it seasonal, is it year round, those sorts, of really ferret out and be specific about it, because I don't think we can understand it just from housing affordability.
Can I ask you a question or clarification? You said you weren't sure we can differentiate between Bowen and let's say the rest of the country in the
Yeah.
housing issue.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you see that you see that there is a difference, or that or do you mean that we wouldn't get that information from the results? of the
We
survey?
would, I mean, we're hearing it at the federal level, at the provincial level, at Metro Vancouver level. Housing affordability
Okay.
is a crisis. It is on Bowen too. But I'm thinking for our OCP, we might want more data so that we can tailor that to our specific needs, because maybe we're a little bit different than the suburbs. I don't know. But I think more information than simply a global crisis would be helpful.
We don't know what we don't know.
No,
Right, oh, I see.
And is that,
No, I get it. So what I wasn't clear what you were saying was that the same affordability issue across the country is exactly the same here on Bowen, or but what I'm hearing you
but if
say,
you peel
correct me
it
if I'm wrong,
apart, it can
it
mean
may be
something
different
quite
and we don't know what that is.
Exactly,
Yeah, okay.
and I want to say the same thing about the economy. I would like to hear from the business community, as far as I know, we don't have a lot of data, and I think we need it. We need to know what Bowen's economy really is, because people sort of throw out assumptions, you know, it's all the Airbnbs, that's, you know, or whatever. And I'm certainly not there, and I haven't seen any recent data.
Right. Before you want to add, did you have a question for Betty on this? Or,
Not so much a question, just a suggestion. We've done a couple of community surveys on housing, the Birch Group, which I think provides some insight into the housing challenge. I could try and pull those up and share with the group because I think it's helpful information. Thanks.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking for, like, it seems to be the next stage, if we start drafting things, requires pulling in whatever work's being done by committees of the municipality or whatever to help inform it, and what gaps we have in knowledge.
The Community Economic Development Committee did some surveys on housing too, as I recall. So,
Yeah, I think it's time to start finding those documents. And then my final comment is more on the document itself. We were really asking for response to the existing OCP. And for a lot of people, you know, who don't reference it like Daniel does all the time, they really didn't know what was in it. But I think there's a difference between responding to the past and thinking about going forward, what creative ideas our community has going forward. And I hope there's space for people in the community that have been forward thinking to contribute to the drafting stage, not just the looking back at, does the old OCP still reflect us?
continuing around the table?
I guess just. I like the comments and it seemed to summarize them well, but in some cases I wasn't quite sure what they were trying to get at. And one of them was, yeah, there's a little box that says the top theme for Bold Lines, it's future vision statement. So did that come out of the survey? I'm on page 12. Balanced growth and affordability, inclusive and intergenerational, or are they suggesting that that's what should be in the vision statement? Wasn't
Are
sure.
these, sorry, on page 12,
Yeah, of the report.
yeah.
Yeah, so it
Under
says 3.1.2.
313, yeah.
Yeah, the top theme for Bowen Island's future vision statement. And there's a whole 6 little
Oh,
bullets
yeah.
there. So is this, that's what they're suggesting? Is that a suggestion that this should be the new vision statement? I just wasn't quite sure what that was.
I can tell you how I read it, and
Yeah.
Daniel, you may be wrong, is that out of the survey, these are the themes around vision that came up most during the survey, not that they're recommending it,
Okay.
but just as themes.
That's what I think too, that combined with probably the like the engagement event feedback, when we're asking people.
Yeah, so
what
it's-
vision
it
statement.
shouldn't say the top themes for Bowen Island's future vision, the top themes that came out of the consultation. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And then just a little, they're talking about engagements. And we ended up canceling the SKA day, so I don't know, you know, just background data, we just didn't have that one, so whether it should just be
Clarification.
canceled or some clarification. And I think that could. Sorry, guys, I did it. Okay, and then, so they were talking about slowing the rate of new development to protect local watersheds and the availability of fresh water. You don't have, if you don't build in the watersheds, then you're not. Are we building in our watersheds now?
So we're
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
And also in the recharge areas.
yeah, that was
Specifically.
sure. Can't read my handwriting, so that's fine. And then, I was kind of concerned about the very specific reference to the Hood Point no hall meeting. I have no problem with the comment, but I don't, you know, maybe just, thought it should have just said comments received was for public maps and materials to accurately reflect public shoreline access. Yeah. We haven't anywhere else in the report picked on a specific area or a specific
I'm pretty sure it would relate to other areas.
as well, yeah, that's it. And then, the other was just in 4.2. They talked about that introduce or build on existing policies, commit to working with the provincial government. So are they mixing us up and thinking we have BC Transit? Because it's Translink that looks after our on-island public transportation. So I don't know whether that could be fixed.
Yeah.
And then in the community growth and development opportunities, I came across a section of the OCP, that's existing OCP, that has a limit. It says our number of units can't be any higher than what it was in the 1996 OCP. And a report that Drew did for Monday, and we're basically almost at that limit. So we need to have, I guess, a discussion about, we're gonna accommodate more people, then that section is clearly gonna have to be changed. And I don't know how well that's gonna go over. Because some of the other comments seem to be, we don't really want, we want housing for workers, but we don't really want a lot more people. If I'm reading that in between the lines, right? So, yeah, this. And then some of the words I didn't understand, they were talking about long-term hospitality over short-term visitation. So is that overnight stays versus day trippers, or, you know, what is, yeah. And then something about the agricultural events, have no problem with trying to get small scale farming and food production. But it says by strengthening the land use designation, so I'm not sure what they mean by that. I mean, if it's zoned agriculture, they can do it. So is it more encouraging people, because there's a lot of land on Bowen that's in the ALR, zoned agriculture, that is not being farmed. And some of it's very nice flat grass that's actually somewhat reasonable land for farming. So wasn't quite sure what they had that.
So I just want to point a clarification here. So on this part, this way I'm reading it. These are their observations and looking at all the survey results. Is that correct? So it might be worthwhile,
Well,
some of this, if it's not clear to you what they mean,
yeah,
I mean, you don't have to agree with it.
Yeah,
It's just if that's
the
their
last-
observation,
the last
yeah,
comments were related to the next step section.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So just sort of, if that's where they're going, I'm not really sure what it is they're intending
Got
to do.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm gonna move to our members on Zoom. So starting at my left, I have Adam. You want to weigh in here?
Sure, thank you. Daniel mentioned, but I sent a marked up PDF with a bunch of nitpicky comments to Daniel earlier, so I won't go through them all. I think what would be really helpful if I was to kind of summarize what I was trying to say in my comments is that for part 3, I find the opening few sections kind of confusing. Vision, goals, themes, like there's a bunch of different terms that are used a little interchangeably, that it might be helpful if they have like a kind of like an opening preamble to this section, and maybe some sort of graphic that shows the relationship between these 3 things. Because they kind of jump around. Goals are in there as well. And I think somebody mentioned it earlier, but there are some things that are mentioned from the original OCP that assume that folks reading this are familiar with it. So I think some additional contextual information would probably be helpful in a few places. Like, for example, they mention a selection of the former 12 goals, but they don't list all 12 goals. So it's not clear which are the least preferred ones. The only other thing I think maybe worth mentioning here is on page 17. This is future growth areas, section 333. I think this is like a really critical, important sort of finding and reporting back. And this one and the one below, housing needs, which is to Betty's point is also super important, are only kind of two smaller paragraphs. It might be worthwhile asking McElhaney to dig a little deeper on these two and pull out more. I think these are likely to be like a very big part of the future OCP. So maybe good just to daylight more of the feedback that we got and just kind of flesh that out a little bit more. But other than that, I think fine. The results are kind of probably what we expected. And no issues really with the formatting or the structure of the report.
Thank you, Adam. Prince?
Yeah, I don't feel quite prepared to comment. I looked at all the questions that people give, and I found it interesting to read through. I would need some more time, but I also find so difficult that if there are some overriding principles, like maybe if you look at the Islands Trust, and if you would see what they have in mind for all the Island Trust islands, and if the environment is so key, and if you would look through all these aspects through the lens of the environment, then many times you have to say, no, this doesn't really help the environment. Like one of the last questions was from, well, are we building in watershed? Basically, most of Bowen Island is one huge watershed. And the places that are the least affected by watershed is everything where is the perimeter, because all the water goes directly into the ocean. So, and I find it really difficult because like people may want more ferry surfers or they want more this and that. But the result of that, it's like how development works everywhere. It fuels itself. You can't stop it. So yes, you want more housing for all kinds of reasons, but that results, if you like it or not, in more people that want even more. It's almost like, do we have at a certain point as an island to make more of more like a fundamental decision? Or because like if you have a priorities, then you need one main priority, I guess. Because you can't just say, okay, it's 45% people like more development, and the other 55 want more environmental protection. But I have no idea how you base or how council can base decisions on that. Like if in the end, if the OCP is an enabling document that council uses to justify decisions, then if you work backwards, which decisions should be enabled? That's what I find really difficult. Because OCPs, and all OCPs are used in the development industry. That's pretty clear to me as an architect. I don't know, like, anyway, I just need some more time, I guess.
Okay. Great, thanks, Prince. Chana?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your patience. I've not been able to attend all the sessions, but I guess I just want to start by saying thank you to all the volunteers on the committee and others who have been part of this process, because I've been witness to a few of the sessions. Saw Fritz out there campaigning in the ferry lineup the day I was there as well. So just a big thank you to everybody. I think that just needs to be acknowledged here in the work. If that's not reflected in the report, I can't recall if it's in there. To Adam's point, I think there was something in there, Adam, that you said. I too would like to see a little more detail to understand where are people's concerns with Seymour Bay, and to understand what it would take to think about future development. You know, taking from paraphrasing Fritz, it's development can't be stopped. It's like, where are we going to do it? And I think the OCP points in those directions. So just some overall observations I had. One was around the overall support for housing diversity with infrastructure considerations, and that infrastructure is the limiting factor, including water. But these must guide the scale and location of this growth. And I think that's the challenge in front. And I like what Fritz said around trying to understand what the OCP is trying to guide us to. Water conservation perspective, water availability appears to be the key constraint on growth coming from the OCP. And I took that away from reading it. Understanding our ecological infrastructure limits, I think that's the key takeaway that I took. But one thing that I haven't heard folks talking about, but we have talked about as a committee, is how do we pay for all of this? So I sort of dug into the OCP a little bit on one of the areas that I took away was that economic and land use policies, they need to prioritize growth in small business. It did talk about agriculture, but as Betty points out, there's areas for further agricultural development and or supporting businesses, and then service-based uses that align with community values and primarily ease reliance on residential taxes to fund growth and service. So that's my observation.
Okay, so I think we've heard from all the committee members. I know that Mayor Leonard's on the call. Were you here to observe, or do you want to weigh in as well?
I am here. Let me get my video on here. Yep, I'm just observing right now. I'm curious about the discussion about the engagement results and following it closely. I'm curious. We did discuss this at council on Monday. I think we're all curious what the next steps are, both from the committee as well as McElhaney as they move towards publishing a draft. I think my own personal comments is the engagement results read like a commentary on the existing OCP. So what I'm, like there was commentary on the existing objectives, and there was lots of responses around that. So I'm curious to see where this goes in terms of a new and sort of revitalized draft, and what's going to be pulled out of that. Are we going to see, new mission, new vision, new values at all based on what folks have shared with us OCP? I'm curious about the overlay of sustainable development goals and reconciliation, circular economy. Right now I'm just paying attention sort of to the discussion, what's ultimately going to come back from the consultants in terms of a draft, and then how is that going to further fuel another engagement process.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I guess I'm the last to weigh in here, and a couple of things that I observed around my read of the report. The first one was in terms of how we framed a lot of the survey. In hindsight, I kind of wish we took a bit of a different approach. That it's easy to put something in front of someone and say, we have this very long convoluted vision or values or whatever it is, and what do you like at, and then of course we say, oh, that's good, oh, that's good, oh, that's good, as opposed to trying to get at what's more important to you, this or this, and I'm not saying that we needed to know this kind of stuff, but in a way, especially when I saw the results, I thought, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Of course, everybody's going to think all these things still have value, but I didn't get a sense of what or it didn't really come out in ways to say, if you had choices, what's more important? And that's the part that I kind of learned saying, oh, I wish we delved a little bit further into that. Because as I looked at it as I was trying to do that, and I don't know, maybe it was my bias coming through as I was reading it, but as I looked to the importance of the environment and all that kind of stuff, of course, that was going to be there. I knew that was going to be there. But then I was trying to think, what is rising up around that? And that was around the ability to develop our issues around infrastructure, be it water, be it the ferry, etc. It was there, and I don't know if I interpreted it to be more there than it was. If we had asked the kind of questions that in hindsight now I wish we would have. But I think there was some of that. And then as well, another reflection I had, and this goes to where Adam was going around the whole question about where we should focus development. And that was, should it be Snug Cove and Seymour Bay compared to the rest of the island? But I wish we asked another question, and that was, should it just be Snug Cove? And so those are the kind of things that as I'm getting into this, realizing that, wow, we asked a question because it's already in the plan. But how do we know how much people support one way or another? And so those are the things that I'll be interested in getting into as we continue our conversation. But I think overall, there was no big surprises to me. I think I wanted a big surprise, and we didn't get it. I think we heard the things that we all knew about, and so that's good, I guess. But just going back to my initial comment, I kind of wish there was some of those trade-off kind of questions that really get at the heart of where people are really concerned about this next plan or the evolution of the plan. And I don't know if this gave me enough of that. So those are my last comments on that. So I'm going to take us around again, and just to reflect again on, and again, if there's not a lot you have to add, we don't, but I want to make sure that we've reflected on this, so we went through a process, we did a survey, and we reached out in a consultative process, and we will be doing it again. What were the either some lessons learned or things that we need to do to reflect on and do differently? Just in preparing this, some of the kind of things that we were talking about in putting the agenda together. Ooh, the next round's going to be cold. So outdoor events will be a little bit more difficult, but anyway, just that kind of thing. What should we do more of, or what kind of things, now that we've done this, do you think we need to focus on? So I'm gonna start with you, Glenn, again. Is there something there that you want to?
Yep, for sure. And hearing the commentary from the rest of their group was helpful to me. I think there's enough ambiguity or vagueness in a lot of the goals and vision statements that we need to spend more time really deciphering them and trying to hone in on what it's mean a little bit more, and how it's going to guide our evaluation and decision making moving forward. I think identifying priorities is an important thing as well, and I think again that public feedback has been good to help kind of identify perhaps priority at macro scale, but then getting down into deciphering and understanding them a little bit more, and assigning some finer priorities would be helpful. And then moving on to I think you can have trade-offs, right? And I think in the end, a lot of the goals and visions and commentary from the public have conflicts in. Like they're not all unified in the same direction. There's conflicts. You can't have can't not grow and still have low taxes and low cost of living. There's conflicts around service delivery, right? Like if there's inherent conflicts in a lot of what we receive. So I think identifying those areas of conflict, you know, maybe taking the higher order vision and goals that have been identified and kind of defining where are their conflicts and where are their alignments. And then evaluating the trade-off decisions about, okay, if you're going recognizing a conflict, if it goes in this direction, then keep the consequences. If it goes in that direction, then losing the consequences. Maybe
Okay, and just also a question related to the process itself of the consultation process. Is there anything that out of what we did that you would say, let's do more of this, or let's do this we didn't do, or?
Well, I think the approach to the process, I think, was good, but I think it's upon us to like tighten it up and tighten what we're asking in the next round and try to be more specific and I think present more information too. Like I think in terms of, you know, a lot of us are professionals that kind of practice in this field. We have a good understanding of the trade-off decisions, but recognizing conflicts in goals, visions, and raising trade-off decisions that hasn't existed at all in terms of feedback. And I think we need to be able to develop that and make that part of the presentation material and be more specific in the questions that we, like I think the next round is being upfront with trade-off decisions that need to be made and then seeking input on, you know, what kind of trade-off decision would you propose?
So part of Jim's statement, a better question.
Yeah.
And would you be willing to pay us for that?
Okay, thanks. Thanks. Intro to yours.
That wasn't my fault. My thing is about engagement. We worked hard at engagement. But 87% of the people that we surveyed own their houses. And it's a super overrepresented group for an island that's concerned about housing, sustainability, and all that sort of thing. Also, full-time residents being 93%. The summer people are a significant portion of the tax, the summer homeowners are a significant portion of the tax base. And the ones that I've talked to feel very underrepresented. I don't know how you reach people that aren't here all the time, but I think we need to do better with that, and we need to do better with the people that rent or are unhoused.
Do you think we were biased to owners?
I probably, but that's not my point. I think that what we didn't do was seek out ways to engage people who are not homeowners. And that bias I'm seeing is a natural outcome of the communities that we're familiar with already. And breaking down, so often our engagement sessions were in densely occupied parts of the island, so you're gonna get those people. I should stop.
Okay, thanks.
When I was reading through the comments to the survey questions, there was a lot of variation in how people interpreted them, and suggests to me that the next time we're writing with the survey or the next OCP, that we need to be much more specific and maybe field test some of our language. So maybe less language and more specific language. And then I think this what surprised me, in that. In the survey was the number of comments about the need for, smaller, I read it as services like grocery stores and car mechanics, I guess. Services in other parts of the island and not only in the cove. And, I guess that reflects a growing population out at Seymour Bay that were, out in the blue water, that area. There's a very large population that thinks we shouldn't all be driving all the way to the cove for everything, and I think that's a relevant comment given our transportation challenges. And I'd really like to somehow in our next round, be more generative, seek out more inspiration, definitely highlight council's mandates about sustainable development and circular economy. We haven't even got that stuff on the table yet. So I think we could do a lot of work on the language we use to get the information we want and need.
David, just because you went to the other side table doesn't mean you get to.
I found with my back to the sun, I was squinting, so I thought it would probably be better to.
Yeah, because later on the computer screen, you need your sunglasses.
Okay, Allison, yeah.
One of my frustrations was could they please do an index of which page the question you discussed on? Because I read the report and then I thought, okay, I want to go and actually see what people said. And so then you have to just start thumbing through the pages, because appendix A just says appendix A, and it doesn't say question 1, question 2, question 3. So I was about to do my own, but it was interesting. I mean, there's one here that doesn't even have the heading as to what question it was. When you look at question 13, talking about where the residential growth, and I think it's interesting because almost 45% said keep the same focus areas, so Seymour Bay and the Stunt Cove, and then only about 25% said spread growth more evenly, and then there was other. And if you go through other and tabulate, some of them said get rid of Seymour Bay, some of them said keep Stunt Cove. If you went through and tabulated those, then I think you're going to end up with more than 50%. There was a lot of support for both areas in the comments, so not sure, but I think that's just an interesting way of dealing with some of those questions and concerns and frustration. So that was basically, if we could have a,
Okay.
I didn't, which, because reading the comments, I think it's quite important. And it's hard to, you want to read the comment and reading the question, so.
You've reminded me of something else, and I would love if further reports from them had the page numbers match the page numbers. The printed page is 3 pages behind the PDF page number.
Oh, yeah.
So when you go to look for page 21, you get 18 or 17 or whatever it is.
Also, do you have any comments on, reflections on, the process that we need to do differently for next time?
I don't know how we can, I mean, there's an old saying about you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I thought we did a pretty good job of advertising and promoting. I mean, I think maybe one of the things we could have done was post things on the mailboxes. I mean, maybe people read that. I know I did that at Town Point for the art show down there and posted a thing that Sarah helped me design a notice. And that did work, but a lot of people actually said, oh, I saw the notice and I came down, so, I don't know, but.
I think it's society's nature, though, right? Private people that own their properties have more invested and typically are going to have a stronger voice. There's apathy.
Did we miss something in the advertising side that? I was trying to find the stats on who's, so the percentage of rental people that responded was less than the percentage of people that are actually renting. Data, I mean.
That's an interesting.
I mean, we know how many. We know how many people rent, or because there's that, there is a section in stats and stuff. Rental. So.
I just assumed it was vastly more than 13 or 13%. 13%, yeah.
Or what do we even mean by rent? I mean, people that rent year round, or people that rent for the summer, or people that rent while they're working a gig.
Year round, question,
Yeah, that's a big approach.
and I.
I'm blanking a bit, and it's probably in here, but I don't want to. Does anybody, did we do demographic information as part of, we did?
Yeah, it's in here somewhere. Again, if we have the page numbers.
Index.
I think the front name of that.
Okay, I'm gonna get us moving along here. Is there anything else on
No,
processing?
that was just my.
Okay.
I think from what I'm recalling, I think the number of rental people that rent. Response was pretty similar to their percentage of the village.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Adam. I call upon you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a few things, and maybe just responding more to what folks have already shared. Agree, Jim, some of your comments about the questions and how we ask folks to prioritize things. I understand and agree with most of it. It just, for this first phase, it's tough to drill in so much, like when people are coming a lot of the times from not having a lot of information or knowledge about OCPs or the process. Uh, Question 12 and 13, to Allison's point, like I think reading the comments on those two, especially question 12, it's a bit of a read. I think it's like it's almost 20 pages of comments. So it takes a while, but I think it's really informative, that in question 13 as well. Because it kind of does get at that question of where development should occur and what it is conditional upon. And maybe that is like when I suggested earlier that they could expand the housing and future land use sections, like maybe it's asking them to take a deeper dive into the comments and pull some more of that out and summarize some of that, because I think it's really the meat of this first part of the engagement and probably the OCP generally. To David's comment about overrepresentation of owners, I totally agree. But that isn't a challenge unique to Bowen. I think most engagement in the Lower Mainland, and probably like engagement in general, tends to overrepresent those groups. They have the time and access to participate in these processes where sometimes those in the rental community don't, and other equity deserving communities. I do think though, like I know that we're just kind of talking through all this, but I don't know where we landed exactly on the survey, but around 500 people out of a population of 4,000, like 25% response rate. Any municipality in the Lower Mainland would kill for that. And so I'm sure there's things that we'll be able to do better for the second round.
Just as an intervention, sorry, for all those 4,000, there's a whole ton of them that are kids. So they wouldn't have responded. So,
And each response probably represented the family.
yeah. So it was a really good response rate if you look at it on the basis of the adult population.
So yeah, so to my point there, like I think this was a very successful engagement. We had a lot of in-person events that were well attended. So I think the conversation should be more like when we start to see what the information is we're going to engage with in the second round, like how we tweak things. But I think generally speaking, I thought McElhaney, everybody in this committee, and Daniel and his team did a great job. So I think that's important to note. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Can I have
Yeah.
clarification? According to the 2021 census, yeah, our population is 85% homeowners. So it's actually a pretty representative set.
Fritz, you're up. Mike's not on though.
Quick.
There you go.
Okay, I thought to take a step back. It's maybe a bit annoying if I do that, but well, I thought from the vision, right? I would have liked it if people could just write out what their vision for the island is, you know, without asking them questions, is it A or B, or what do you like more or less? That they would be free to write what they see as their vision. And I think that gets lost a bit in all the complexities of, I mean, we have a pretty good democracy and people can participate, they can contribute, all of that's there. I think we can get lost a bit into data collection and percentages and how do you actually translate that in words. But I think that if what I would have liked about more giving people more space to write what they think is that it may not be totally realistic, and in a way that doesn't matter because visions are something in the long run and maybe you never get there. So then out of that, I think you would read more what people truly want on a personal, emotional level, maybe. I think those are kind of the key things. And then if you have too many priorities, that doesn't work. Most of the time you have one priority because then you know what to do. If you have 6 of them, you don't know what to do. And then you have to say from which priority is more important. Well, then you have priority and you have a second priority and a third priority. No, you either have a priority or you don't. So in my mind, if something is so important and it keeps coming back all the time, which is the environment, then that's our priority. It's just that simple, right? And then you say, okay, we'll look at everything through a lens of the environment. You know, and then you maybe can say, well, we want to be fair to everybody. And then you say, it has to be inclusive. But then we're structured and we're just kind of clear. I find that I always feel that this data collection and trying to justify how things are tweaked in the OCP, it's kind of OCP tweaking, I feel, too much. And it's an amendment, sure, but then you have to somehow find the key things that need to change because it's an amendment. That doesn't mean it's minor, that it means that you have to figure out which ones are the key things. And you know, and then you have to have a path to do that. And for instance, if I see the response from the mayor to the contribution from the Conservancy, if you read that, then I think I'm pretty clear where we're going, you know. And then if we let's make a Hardy just do a draft, and then we read the draft, and then hopefully we can be clear enough where it's maybe not correct. That's just more than looking back again from, okay, now we have elected people that we trust, like our mayor and our councillors, and we believe that they will make the right decisions. Now, then you have to go back from, well, which decisions flow out of those amendments. So I see that the some of the time that we spend is just, in my mind, a focus on trying to justify with numbers and questions and data what in the end we end up doing. Anyway, that's how I feel.
Thank you for that. So is there anything else you want to add around process in the future, or?
Say it again?
Is there anything that you want to reflect on that we need to, for when we do the next round of consultation?
Well, it's maybe how you phrase it and give people space in like, I don't know if like it's kind of obvious some things. Like I found reading the comments one by one of interest, but I find the idea that you can get really data out of that and percentages that somehow put you on the right course. I'm not so convinced. You know, the other thing that I was thinking is that this is maybe a difficult one too. Go back 200 years or so and look at Bowen Island. And if you had the chance to, if you would have the chance to design or to plan Bowen again, what would you do? Well, I can give you all kinds of answers, what you would have done. And if you look at the newer communities that have the choice to do that, you can look at those and see what they're doing. And then you can see what is in our way, you know, and like for instance, if you say from some conclusions maybe that there's green space and there's brown space, right? Brown space has been used already. That's what you're going to use because you don't want to use more green space. It's just that simple. And then, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that the island is the way it is, and it has made all kinds of decisions. Some of them are completely in our way moving forward. We would have done it differently. And I find it kind of interesting to figure out what would you do to put us on the right track, which means that what if people would live on an island like this, what would we do? And when I said earlier that the problem is that each organization always wants to make itself bigger. It's everywhere. You know, it's cities, it's everywhere. So at a certain point, there has to be also some decisions that you dare to make, and then to see how people respond. Maybe say, well, we think this is really important, put it out there, you know, and as a very simple question and see how people respond. You know?
Thank you. And last up on the list here is Chana.
Maybe just building on what Glenn said in the beginning, I do like the approach to the trade-offs. So my opinion is we've heard the what. We've heard the what from the community, and it feels like that's done and dusted. And sort of thinking about what our objective was as a committee, it's to help council and mayor get to a decision in a timely manner. So if we're asking the question on what's the next phase, I would go one step forward in terms of the trade-off and use the word target the next round of consultation with what the community is willing to compromise on, not just what they want. That's my 2 cents.
Adam, do you have a question for Chana, or you want to weigh in on something else here?
It was kind of just responding to what Tana just said about Glenn's comment about the trade-offs. Like, I think that's kind of what we're getting at in the scenario development for the second round. Like, I think that's going to be probably what we're trying to tease out is that question of compromise and like different ideas, to Fritz's point about like where growth should be. So just totally agree with those 2 comments. And I guess maybe just like, I think we did give people an opportunity to provide more written and kind of open-ended. Like there's 194 pages of text responses. So like, I don't think that we didn't do that. I think that's worth noting.
Point. So just the last word for me would be more along the lines of, remember what, I mean, like to Adam's point, we have a lot of input that we had from folks, and being able to, you know, disseminate it and sort of come to a total conclusion on it today probably isn't the point. Point is, as we get into some conversations, we can reflect back on this, and we can go back to say, let's dig a little deeper on what folks were saying to us about this, that, and the other. So it does provide us that value to be able to use it as a resource. So on the one hand, I know I was sort of saying, hey, I wish we got more of this, that, and the other out of it. I don't want to dismiss that as we get into conversations around our next one's obviously going to be about values and all that kind of stuff. How will this piece of work allow us to dig into that a bit and see if we can glean from that? Before we end up on this topic though, we have 4 staff members in the room who all participated in this process. And so I just want to make sure that I give you guys a bit of space if there was anything that you wanted to say about the process, or committee, don't forget about this the next time around. But is there anything that you would want to say, either in your experience with other things that you've dealt with in the local government that we haven't been involved in, or things that you just saw yourselves? Any 4 of you, I'll just open up the room.
I will evade that question
Okay.
by asking you a question. Is when you talk about the scenarios, which I thought were exciting, but did they fit into the scope? We were excited by the scenarios.
Your original ideas.
Oh,
and
scenario
then,
planning.
Matt going to do
There's-
presentations.
Yeah, I mean, there's scenarios in their work plan. I think what got cut was the idea of doing like a full, like interim engagement round was their recommendation not to do it. So I think when we originally laid out the work plan, I had like 3 rounds of engagement. And they said, no, we recommend 2 and not doing full engagement on the scenarios.
So they're still gonna do scenario?
But it would, yeah, we intended it was more for like at the steering committee level.
Yeah.
Versus like full engagement level.
So that sort of thing we're gonna see on the 19th or
I'm not sure when we'll see it on the 19th versus. But
trying
Yeah.
to figure out when it's.
I suspect that's probably not the kind of thing that you would do at that stage, maybe.
I also like the mail drop idea. I think that getting people's our hands on paper and
Yeah.
putting things on fridges is a good idea.
Daniel, is there anything you guys want to reflect on that I think would be good for us to know?
no, and I think, when I think phase 2 engagement, like, oh, it'd be nice to have more lead time, more project, and also have her do mail drop and do posters and do everything, and then I know reality is probably. Surrounding it anyways.
Mail drop, I've been spending
Yeah.
around pretty good. That's, I get that that's the time. In the mailboxes that time.
Carol will personally drive her.
Throwing out the window.
Okay, great. Okay, so that is it for 4.2. Oh, sorry.
Communication, it just occurred to me, because of the question somebody asked me the other day. There's, most of the local communities now have their own sort of community chat box, like Tunstall Bay's got one, and the King Edward Bay Stratus, the Stratus got one, and the lots of, Good Point householders, the South Pole Community Association, the Eagle Cliff Community. We could probably get them to do an email blast out to telling people about the next round of engagement and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And we did ask questions to how they want to find out.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just another source, which would get the non-resident. The mail drop will only get people that have mailboxes.
Okay, so going back to our agenda on 4.3, the other engagement, other interest holders. So this is a bit on what we had talked about at our last meeting. Just as a bit of a recap. Here we go, and thank you for that, that really helps. So just to remind folks around the room that we talked about, without seeing the results, we were just talking more about from a process perspective, like how we might engage with some of the other interest holders. And so the proposal that what we think would work would be, here's the dates up here. So on the 29th of July, which is today, that we will have a sign off to a draft letter and a list of the interest holders. So just a reminder, the idea was that we were going to send out the report to the interest holders. And with that, it would sort of, is there any reflections on that report that they as an interest holder would like to give back to the committee. And so then, so going to what's on the screen here, so on August 5th, Xerxes will send out that final letter to the interest holders, giving them until September 3rd to provide us any additional feedback that they may or may not wish to give us on their observations on the report. How does that sit with folks? Any
How
questions,
does
any
that
comments on?
timeline for September 3rd fit with the overall timeline?
I think it gives people a month, it goes to Labor Day, and it would be after our next meeting. But then the hope is that we would see stuff before the next September OCPSC meeting.
And so, and before McElhaney starts producing things, or,
They would already be producing things.
but it's not passed, there's no point in asking people for input and then saying, sorry, we
It's
can't.
too late, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, we didn't want to crunch it anymore too, because it's like, it's the summer with group to say, quick, tell us what else you need to say. You have
It's a big.
48 hours. Yeah,
And that's okay with McElhaney? The drafts?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Again, part of it will be more it's back to the committee, further reflection as sort of,
Yeah.
but as an interest holder, here's the things that really stick out to us. Much like what we've done around.
I don't have a problem with it, I just don't want to get feedback back and then have McElhaney say, well, we've got it all drafted. We're not gonna have to start rewriting.
Well, I don't think the intent was to change the report. It was
No,
more.
not this report.
Right.
But they're gonna start drafting
Gotcha.
visions and stuff like that, and if we get this input too late after they've got that all done, that's fine with me.
and I think, kind of the level of feedback I think we're looking for is maybe more specific. We're saying like for vision and goals, that's more coming from, the survey of everybody, that's coming from council's vision, that's coming from OCPSC steering committee input. And then this is more saying, okay, but you may know specific things about specific areas that your group is interested in, you're gonna provide feedback on that. So I don't to some extent, I don't know if we would take feedback from one group saying like, this should definitely be a vision of the OCP. So that doesn't seem representative, that your particular vision should be the vision, but more they're saying, well, but when you're dealing with this area, this is what we should consider.
Sorry, clarify for me, the August 19th meeting, not going, what is the agenda for that?
Unset, but in the progress report, that's when we had the meeting number 3 and sorry, closed it. So they have like the next 2 steps were draft vision goals. OCP, and then it was scenario options.
On August 19th.
I need to clarify with them after this meeting, like exactly what they think they're gonna have prepared. So we had set up that August 19th meeting. Right after the report was established. And partly when we didn't want to go until September, and then came back to us. Like the next 2 steps, draft vision, goal, emerging policy options, and then formulate scenarios and options. There is the certain meeting number 3, and that's what we had scheduled for the 19th. I'm just not sure at that point, at this point, sort of what their overall goal is for that meeting.
And maybe we want to save that meeting for when it can be more useful.
That's always a possibility.
They had confirmed for 19.
They had confirmed. They had suggested the 19th.
Okay. Maybe we could maybe just a little nudge.
Oh, yeah.
Organized in the summertime, I get it.
But I guess what Glenn's getting at is, do we want these inputs by then?
Well, I guess I'm thinking that that's their intent for the 19th. I almost feel it's premature. I almost feel like we need to spend more of the workshop style conversation with them to kind of address some of the higher order challenges we see in interpreting what we have heard so far.
Adam, you have one way in on this? Or your hands up?
Yeah, I think about the letter to the stakeholders or interested groups. I don't disagree with the idea. I think there is a risk though in that in us being proactive about that, we're kind of saying what those groups are. And maybe we've captured them all, but it could be that we've missed some. And
Do we have a list?
there's a risk in that, like, if we don't identify those groups when we're doing this, that there's, I don't know, hurt feelings about it. To the question or conversation about incorporating their feedback, I assume that most of the feedback we're going to get from these groups is going to be probably finer grained than what the OCP will be at policy level wise. So I can't see it being radically different than the feedback that we got from the broader public engagement. So I mean, as long as there's some time to go through that feedback and pull what we can use, I think that's fine. I don't think it's gonna like radically change the direction that we're probably already heading towards. So I think that's less of a concern for me. But yeah, thanks.
And those aren't groups, in a lot of cases, they're individuals.
This was supposed to be interest holders, right? So not individuals.
But if you look at the,
This
I know some of the list is obviously it's like categories that you wouldn't be sending necessarily, like.
Do you want to go through the list?
Do we want to stay right now, focus on like the letter and then like, do we want to do this? And then maybe confirm who we go to. It's a good idea.
Yeah, and if I'm recalling correctly, that we thought of this as an idea because we felt that perhaps we should have had a separate way of engaging with interest holders in the first round.
Yeah.
And so we thought of this as, okay, this isn't perfect, but at least it gives them an opportunity to be engaged at an interest holder level, as opposed to just as the individual, writing a survey. And also, the other reflection is that we had some interest holders write to us, but we didn't invite it. And so this was another way in which to other interest holders saying, if there's something that you want to make sure that we are aware of as we are still at this early stage, now's your opportunity. So that was sort of the main intent. And I still think that, in my mind, I still think that's valid.
but there's two kinds of interest holders, I guess, like there's every business that's down in the cove, and every home-based business. And all the short-term rental providers, and then there's associations. Like, you know, like the Conservancy and Birch and, you know, just all the 3-page list of all the not-for-profit organizations that are on the island.
What would be typical for us to call an interest holder? Is that, I mean, that's terminology, that's Bowen terminology, like, no, I used the wrong term in our previous.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we haven't solicited businesses, and yet the economic, from an economic development category, there's some input. You know, a lot of businesses, if you don't have the critical mass, the business isn't gonna fly.
You're saying that you think that these interest holders have already participated in the
Well, no, they
engagement?
haven't, because
But to
they're
be
not
individuals.
individuals.
So would that mean every business on the island?
Well, I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
I mean, I think we can, yeah, picture this more as like, so, you know, it's like the Conservancy, Hearth, Resilience Group, where they're like. Just like association.
So it's organizations and associations.
Yeah.
Okay, because when you're looking at that list, there's a lot of things that would be individuals.
And I know like this list. Like, people worked on a couple, I mean, we're trying to figure out which was the actual latest version
System is what it
Is
is.
we have a few different versions that people have generated. So we've shared this, one that we're trying to populate with context, but that, I think that's the goal of it, is like, it's not to individuals, presumably filled out the survey, it's not to like individual businesses necessarily. If there was like a Bowen business association, that would be the level that would be.
Yeah.
You know,
So rather than using the word group, I think you should use the word organization. So it is some sort of entity that gets together and meets and like that.
So don't think we need to worry about trying to make it perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
It's-
For my legislation drafting after.
We're wanting to get.
Yeah, you don't run, you're not running elections.
We have freedom to.
Yeah. so we can leave that with you guys to sort that out. Is that fair?
Sure, absent, like, as long as we're hearing the certainty supports the letter, major changes to the letter.
Can you send us the letter by email?
It's in the agenda. It's in the agenda package.
You want to send my email to the packet, it's on the screen.
But then I guess I'd say like this week, that people have thoughts on, like, people that edits on the letter, or people have ideas for interest groups that aren't listed, or you should be, feel free to email us or book contact information. Maybe, or we maybe reach out later this week to say, here's where we finalized, so they may have contacts for these groups.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, Daniel? So that's 4.3, new business. Another sort of touch base on how we should be dealing with things is relating to Go Fest. Daniel and Sarah, you guys were gonna lead this, is that correct?
So back in May, when I first saw it come out, I signed up for a table at GoFest. It was a project, not knowing what stage of the project we would be at and what we'd be looking for, but thinking I should do that as a placeholder. So now as we approach August and it's happening, I wanted to come to this year and say, do we want to do a table at GoFest? So we had a year like, what would the goal be in having a table at GoFest, sort of in between the engagements, kind of be there to update people about the OCP project, where we are in the process. Please hear about it. I guess gather people's thoughts, but it's sort of really want to reopen that. Like from what we heard reports, or sort of big picture conversations. So I guess that was question number one, is like, is this something that we want to see happen? And then question number two is like, who would be willing to volunteer to help in the table?
Do you have any idea of what other tables and book?
I know we just talked about the managers meeting, like, so I'm aware of, you know, the ESS steering table and Fire Smart steering table. I don't know organizations who's there.
And that's the only projects we've done right now.
For municipality, yes.
So basically what you're saying is this is an opportunity just to get some awareness around the process and to get people paying attention. Remembering, I learned something new, that we don't have a specific OCP mailing list. It's the general municipal mailing list. So if they're not already on that, that would be their way to hear about it in the future. But it just gives an opportunity to have a couple folks there to talk about that. So the question is, do we think this is still useful? And if it is useful, is it a useful use of your own time that you would volunteer? Do we have volunteers to be out of it? Oh, Adam, you want to weigh in?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I think absolutely we should go to it. It's the event of the Bowen summer. And so I think it's a good use of our time. I think it's good to report back on what we've heard so far, remind people that this process is ongoing. So I think it's, it's a fun place to be. Like, I'm happy to volunteer. They serve hot dogs and it'll likely be in the sun. So all good. I think we should go though.
Okay, so-
Get a tent, right?
Yeah, so a clarification on that, were we thinking that we would have materials to share on what we heard? Or is it, if you're interested, go to the website, download the report, have a look at the report?
I think so, like, I would look to update the boards that we used, I think there was one that was like, this is what an OCP is. And then there was a link to like, the survey, and instead I would update it to be like, this is what an OCP is. Here's a link to the project page. And then maybe a board that's like, this is the project, the timeline, you hear from us. And then I think it's, providing them with a link, like, here's what we've heard so far.
Could we have that one, the one graphic that was in your report, or that they had in there, like sort of a snapshot of what we heard?
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be useful. Betty?
I think we need to give people something to do too. I mean, even if it's just a post at what I love about bowling or something, I mean, I think and I think it's a great opportunity to reach families, younger, people that we not feeling highly successful about reaching in our first survey.
And have some sort of sign up sheet or something, or a box where they fill out a little form of how to get on the email list or something.
Sure.
But,
I think we're better at that point than just the QR code to subscribe. Like that's much clearer, like people could just do it straight to subscribe versus.
if they're there with their phone and can.
Right, but versus somebody writes it out and then we have to then enter that
Collect it and
into.
collect it somehow.
Yeah, someone was, I can't find my phone.
Right down her email address. Just have one, just a page where they could write it in, just in case. Encourage them to do the QR code, but there are some people that don't do QR codes, won't have their phone with.
I'm dying to say we don't want their feedback, but I feel badly saying that I think it's important to be there and that I can't.
I can be there. I'll do the same because I go anyhow.
Okay, so we'll have, just,
3 so far.
okay, 3 so far.
And it's open from when to when?
It's like setups at 10:30, I think it opens at 11.
After the parade.
The parade would go up to the 10:15
Yeah.
ferry. It's not 9, I think it's the 10:15. Right.
It opened the parade.
Yeah, so everyone walks down the hill in the parade and then parades around.
And the parade's gonna be, we got a new ferry schedule, so.
Or longer between them though, so it might be actually.
Okay, so I can just a Google sheet as well, people can sign in. Because essentially we'd look for like a minimum of 2 shifts with 2 people on each shift.
Yeah.
So somebody's there for setup. And the start, and then a shift takes over and I can go to the end. And if we have more people, either we go small shifts or people. We work on slides, we'll work on boards. I know activity.
I think it's like a fun activity, not one where they're thinking their feedback is gonna be collected, because.
Yeah.
Vending station.
I know, I was thinking like more stickers, like something to hand out to
Yeah.
kids.
It's like a ring toss or something. Show it at the.
We give it a dump tag for parent council.
No, I'm not participating.
Okay, anything else on this? Other business. Action item.
Action items. Yeah. I have for the intersoldier engagement, I've made up a deadline of Thursday, July 31st, at midnight. Just to give Xerxes a day to, or days to, do the work, so please, let us know, are you okay with the letter, and are there any other groups that you want included? And do you have contact me? Find about best groups. And for BowFest, Daniel will circulate a sign-up sheet. And you will respond to that, please.
Sounds good.
When?
So I'm actually not to find content to approach from announcement.
Yes, thank you.
Well, because I
Else that goes to Daniel.
Okay, so just looking at that. And we will be sending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm gonna move us along to information items. Is there anything you want to say about this, or was this just for the information of the?
It's just information.
Yeah. One thing, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and it can either be for now or another meeting. I read with interest that there was a rezoning application for Seymour Bay.
Yes.
And that there was one of the resolution, I don't know what happened, but it would be just be referred to through the OCP process. I'm just curious what happened, whether or not this committee needs to know anything about it.
It was referred to the future committee of the whole with council.
And the community and the applicant.
Yes,
Okay, so no direction yet on the rezoning.
and I'll say in general, like, it has been a thing that when OCP, applications from within the OCP come up, right, it's always a question for council of like. So we have a few on the go now that are for like, sort of individual lot rezonings that would have been the existing OCP. And so we always are bringing it for discussion for council in terms of, do you want to proceed with this application, or do you want to wait for the new OCP? And yeah, this is more, I think it's a much larger.
Okay, and committee of the whole meeting is,
Not scheduled, but the next one that we have, like, not assigned to a time, but the next one that we have is in September. I think
Oh,
is one on the books.
September 15th.
Yeah,
okay, so we'll be looking at our next meeting. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just as a general thing, it would be good to maybe update the committee once a direction has been given by council. Okay, sure. Okay.
Well, and then actually, I think all the responses to the question about future growth would be relevant for that committee of the whole meeting.
Question period. Do you have any questions?
Got everyone in the Zoom room
Okay.
and
Okay, and so our next meeting is scheduled for August 19th at 1 p.m. here with Matt Bohaney, and we're going to get those clarifications about that, and you'll see the agenda in advance. With that, it is 12:12, and I'm going to adjourn to 12.
Well done.
12. That too.
You went
It's like
next time.
12 somewhere.
Oh, we ended early.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.